Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Great Black Speakers Podcast, where we connect through conversation. I'm your host, Lawrence Watkins. I am the president and chief operating officer of the Black Business School, and also the founder and CEO of Great Black Speakers Bureau. And today, so we have our back-to-back Black Friday special of interviews. This next interview, we're actually talking about more about government contracting, and we have two special guests. One that you're already familiar with Mr. Walter Cotton III, who is our resident government contracting expert with the Black Business School. And then we also have a very special guest that's going to tell her story, Miss Michelle F. Anthony, who is the president and CEO of Anthony and Associates, or AAI. And today we're talking about how this Black woman who is before us today won a $900 million contract with the federal government. And yeah, we're going to be talking all about her story. So, Michelle, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. And I, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. So, Michelle, can you just tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and how you've gotten to this point in your career?
Well, yes, I can. I actually am an Army veteran. I'm a service disabled veteran. Started out my career at the tender age of 18, going into the Army. And during that time, I also wanted to become a court reporter or stenographer, as they were known back in the day. And so I utilized my opportunity in the Army to leverage college funding in order for me to be able to go to college after I finished my time serving the country. So once I went to court reporting school and I finished court reporting school, I ran into a major problem. I was beginning to experience the doors not being open for me as an African American seeking an opportunity to, one, either just get experience as a court reporter or open up my own business. So through all of the adversity that I suffered, I ended up actually not getting a job, but starting this company, Anthony and Associates, right out of court reporting school after a period of time of not getting a job. So this company this year celebrated its 25th year anniversary. And so during that time, I've gone through a lot with the legal background and the courtroom provisions that we would make as court reporters. There was a problem, like I said, with us not being able to get a job. So I went back and I hired a lot of people who didn't get an opportunity that looked like me to be a court reporter in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area. Then during that time, I began to challenge the court systems and different things about opportunities for minorities and found myself being blackballed. And I'm just going to be very honest. So when I found myself being blackballed, and I'm a spiritual person, of course, I sought guidance and counsel. And then my spirit was just directed, to begin to look into Christian attorneys and also towards the federal government. During that time, it was right during the movement of when the sexual harassment and all type of workplace violations were being, recorded for the first time, and grievances were really being heard. So it was a brand new door that was being opened for me as a court reporter in my company. So I began to provide services for the federal government. And at that time, I didn't know that eventually I was going to migrate and grow this company and expand this company. But that was how I got in the door, because I was first presented with adversity. I didn't stop there. I continued on and I pressed on. And then I stumbled upon what has been the greatest thing that I've ever stumbled upon in my professional career. So after I began to migrate into the federal side, I started understanding that there were certain certifications and classifications that if you gain those, you would be in a better position to position yourself for more federal work. And so I began to do my studying, and I found out there was a such program as the 8A program for the minorities in the underserved community. At that time, there was not a program for service disabled veterans yet. But as I began to grow my knowledge under the 8A program, these things began to open up. There was also not a program for women-owned businesses. So as I began to develop myself, I realized I was checking all the boxes that the federal government had already set aside an opportunity to give us an economic advantage if we were willing to pursue it and do what we needed to do in order to take advantage of it. So I applied for the 8A program, was approved in the 8A program. But at the time, I was living in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area, and I didn't really have a mentor or anyone to take me by the hand and tell me, hey, do you realize the value of what you have? And so I didn't. So for many years, I did not get the full maximum value of the 8A program because of the people that they had in place that they would call their counselors and the people that were overseeing the program. None of them had run a business before. So they were not effective in trying to tell a person who's starting a business and who's trying to grow a business what you need to do to take advantage of millions and billions of dollars that the federal government has set aside. So for several years, I didn't maximize it. But towards the second half of my time with that program is when I really began to understand and take off. And I began to write proposals and compete for opportunities, because a lot of times in the 8A program, what happens is I've noticed we get so accustomed to hearing that there's a sole source contract, but the sole source contract has a ceiling. It has a limit of $4 million or $4.5 million is all you can earn on that contract. And so if you get comfortable in that mindset, you won't continue to grow and build your company so you can compete. A lot of 8A companies are not prepared to compete for business. So that was the danger for me when I decided, you know what, I want to compete. So the first time I did it, it was for a contract at Walter Reed Hospital in Bethesda, Maryland. And at that time I had, like 7 employees. But because of my writing and my court reporting training and making sure everything was perfected to the T, I became a natural at writing government proposals. So I competed for this contract and it had like maybe 90 something employees on it. And it was for 1 year, but it was for like $4.5 million. And I won that on a national level, my first time trying. And, the contract ended up being extended. So it ended up being about an $8 million contract because they kept extending the term of the contract. But that's when I really began to see, you know what, you're on to something. So then, but here I am at the later stage of my 8A opportunity. So I started looking at, okay, this is going to sunset very soon. So, now that I've seen all these years of what I had and I did not maximize it, I made a promise to myself. And I promised myself that because I wanted to create generational wealth for my children, and I wanted to create jobs and help people who look like me, who don't look like me, anyone that needed help, I wanted to be able to offer that to them. I made a commitment to myself. Never again will I identify an opportunity that the federal government, the largest purchaser in the world, has earmarked for me, and I don't maximize it. I don't blow it out of the water. And so from that lesson, it brought me to where I am now. So
can I interject something here, Michelle? I mean, I apologize. I just want
I have so many questions, but I was like, you know what? I don't even know if I want to interject. I'm loving the story. Kind of like you a couple weeks ago, Walter.
Hey, and the audience should pay particular attention because Michelle is the epitome of what's needed to exceed in this environment. One who studied herself, approved, got out there and worked a system that worked. But what I wanted to interject here is something about this young lady that she's probably going to be too humble to share. But in addition to being the CEO of AAI, Michelle is also the founder and CEO of her philanthropic foundation. Now, I'm going to juxtapose a philanthropic foundation from a charitable foundation just to differentiate this young lady for you. In a charitable foundation, those organizations go out and secure donations, right? They try and raise money to drive the mission. In a philanthropic foundation, the owner seeds the mission. I hope you folks are getting a little cotton in your ear because you're being blessed by one of the best. Michelle, go ahead and explain to them where you found yourself at the end of your 8A process, but wanting to take advantage of more runway.
Yes. So as that time, like as I said, was sunsetting, I had to sit back and evaluate what I had, what I did wrong. Because if we don't do a deep self-examination and accept failures have always worked into your advantage. And to me, I failed previously and I made my mind up, I won't fail again. And so sometimes we have to tell ourselves the hard truths about ourselves. What did I not do? Where was I lazy? Where was I not looking for opportunities? Where was I not studying and staying abreast of what was around me? So once I did that, I started seeking a new way to take advantage of what I had left, because I knew that was going to sunset. And I looked at, okay, well, I'm a woman. At this time, the woman-owned program was in place, but also there was another one that I began to research, and I began to see, wait a minute, I'm a service disabled veteran and I'm a minority female. And if you look around, as many events as I've attended, I'm pretty rare. So then I started looking at, okay, well, how can I take this service disabled veteran opportunity? Let me see what it holds. And when I realized that I will be a service disabled veteran the rest of my life, that I will be an African-American woman the rest of my life, I said, there it is. So the service disabled veteran opportunity, though, let me tell you something, that one is of the most value out of everyone I have that I own, because that is an opportunity that the federal government has said, in exchange for your sacrifice while serving this country and being injured during the line of duty, we owe it to you, your family, and your children to give you an economic advantage over any other government contractor. And when I looked at that, the thing that got my attention was it had no dollar cap. The 8A program has dollar caps on everything that they can do. The woman-owned program, I've researched it. Trust me, I'm a woman. There is no contract that I've been offered as a woman that's worth billions of dollars. There's not one. The only one is this service disabled veteran program. So when you start looking at, okay, what strengths do I have? What do I need to be compliant? What do I need to do in order to make sure I get a seat at the table? Because if you're not at the table, you will not eat. And we don't understand that. We have to be at the table. So as an African-American woman, I had to make sure that I positioned myself at the table and looked for opportunities that would require something bigger than me to attain them. So because
Right.
if we open up our minds that the supernatural, that there's a being that's greater than I am. And if I believe in what I've read and what I've been told, anything is possible in my life. So when you listen to the dollar values of the contracts that I've won, when you look at where I was when I won them, you would have never thought that I would have won them. But I had the audacity to step out on faith. I had the audacity to throw my hat in the ring. And because of that faith, I've seen a faithful promise come true in my life.
Mm.
Quick question.
I love
Michelle.
it. Right.
Go
Yeah.
ahead,
So,
Mark.
yeah. So I have so many questions. I'm going to ask these questions in regards to just numbers, and then we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to go back more in depth into Michelle's story after that to see how she did what she has done as well. But Michelle, so can you talk about the largest contracts that you've received or that you have earned with the federal government?
To date, the largest contract that I've been awarded, Anthony and Associates, Inc., is called Vector. And that is a transformational contract with the Department of Veterans Affairs. And the total dollar value of that contract that they've awarded for a group of veteran-owned businesses is $25 billion over 10 years. That is the largest contract that has my name, my signature on it to date. And then there's another one that as a prime. Now, there's a difference between whether you're a prime and a sub. On the contracts I'm naming to you, Anthony and Associates is a prime contractor. And the second largest contract that we are prime on is by the Defense Health Agency. And that is providing medical support services to the active duty military installations around the country. The total value of that one over a 5-year period is $970 million, basically $1 billion that they've awarded to my company and some other small businesses along with that we share that contract award. Those are the two largest to date.
that you've been with that you are the prime on. Is that correct?
Yes, then I'm not including any subcontracts.
Right,
Because
right.
uh-huh.
And that's a very big difference, everybody. And I guess a question, just for clarity's sake, too, in terms of the 8A certification, what was the largest that you received, through 8A?
Through the 8A, the largest was the one contract I referenced that ended up being at right about $8 million. So that was the largest. I mean, I won some $4 million ones, $3 million ones. So I won several, but that was the largest towards the tail end. That if I had known what I knew at the end, it would have been game over. They would have put me out the program.
Right. The reason I asked that is I want you guys to really see the range. And, truthfully, I'm just going to make a confession to you all, to the people who are watching right now. I was going to put that $26 billion number in terms of the largest contract that Michelle has been awarded. I thought that it may be too unbelievable for people to actually tune in. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later too, and why I thought that way, and why you shouldn't think that way, and how we can break those thought patterns as well. But before we get deeper into Michelle's story, I just want to remind everyone that I'm here with Michelle F. Anthony and Mr. Walter Cotton III. You'll see Walter for the rest of this month. We have actually a special. That's next Thursday, actually. Yeah, a special master lecture coming up in terms of creating generational wealth through government contracting next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'll go ahead and put the link for you guys in chat as well. And we're talking all about this stuff in terms of how to do. Really, Walter is. I'm just here, trying to just facilitate the process. But he's the one that's going to be delivering that information to you. That's going to be absolutely invaluable because you see the range that Michelle is actually talking about today with her story. But Michelle F. Anthony is the president and CEO of Anthony and Associates, AAI. And today we're talking about how she has won a $26 billion contract from the federal government and a $900 million contract with the federal government as well. So if you like this information, please go ahead and press the thumbs up button on YouTube. The more love that you show us, the more love that the algorithm shows us, so more and more people can see this wonderful information. Please make sure that you share and subscribe as well.
And let me interject.
Go ahead, Michelle, please. Yes.
The two contracts combined are 26 billion. One is 25. The value is 25, and the other one is right at 1 billion. So it's a total of 26, not 126 and 1 billion.
Got you. Thank you for that clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to go back to the beginning of your story though, because there was just so many different things, that we as people, we know our barriers and our challenges, but you have overcome them at every single step of the way, right? So the first is when you got out the military. And let's talk about that. What rank were you when you left the military?
I was an E4 promotable.
So an E4 promotable. So you were enlisted, 4th level.
Yes.
Yeah. So what is that? A sergeant?
No, I was one step beneath a sergeant, and I was promotable to a sergeant, but I didn't want to stay in any longer because I had become a new mom of twins, and the Gulf War had broken out, and my commitment to the military shifted once I became a mother. As long as I wasn't a mother, it was different. But yes.
Yep. And did you join right out of high school?
I did.
I did. Right out of high school. So that means you did not have a college degree at this moment when you left the military.
That's correct.
And then when you're getting into court reporting, talk about some of the discrimination that you were facing.
Oh, well, what was happening was, even in school, this was a 4-year program. I had realized I wanted to be a court reporter or stenographer at the age of 13 years old. I'm originally from Montgomery, Alabama, and my family was so poor. There was a program that President Carter had approved back in the 70s, and it was the CETA program. And the CETA program would give a job to one of the children in the household in the summer. And I was 13 at the time, and my sister was 15, and we both applied, but they gave me a job, and they placed me in the Montgomery County Courthouse. And that was the first time that I was taken into a professional environment. And that's where my love for the law And all of that was birthed right there. That one opportunity changed my life. It got me out of the hood and brought me into a professional environment. So I knew that that was destiny now as I look back. And so when I got in the military and I got out, all I knew was I wanted to fulfill that dream. And then I went to the school. It was a 4-year program. I completed it in 2. I was so eager, so on fire, and I excelled and exceeded everyone who started with me. But when I got to the levels at that school, you have to get up to a speed of 225 words a minute on your steno machine. And so I was at 225. I had other Caucasians who were at lower speeds than me. And what would happen is when it was time to start your internship and to go and sit with the actual court reporting firms, they would not allow, well, they would allow us to, as African Americans, we could come and intern, but they would never offer us a job. And so I started noticing this pattern, and I'm like, hey, I'm at the top of the class. I'm the only one here, but I'm finding out, okay, if I go and intern with this company the next week, a Caucasian will come into class and say, hey, I interned with them and they offered me a job. I'm like, but I just interned with them last week. They said they're not hiring and they won't be hiring anytime soon. So I began to see a pattern. So the straw that broke the camel's back was there was a position that came open on Hilton Head Island. And who wouldn't want a job on Hilton Head? Your first job as a court reporter. So I was at 225 and there was another student who was at 200. The school sent her to Hilton Head. She was given a job. I never even knew the job existed. It was never posted, none of that. When I realized she's not coming to school anymore, I've been told she's relocated. So she went there and she started there. She stayed there for 6 months and she came back to Virginia Beach and started her own firm. And she just started getting work left and right. And I was like, this is incredible. I had all my equipment, all my licenses, everything. So then when I started trying to penetrate the firms that own the firms, what I realized was in 1995, in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, Newport News, Hampton, all of these cities had circuit courtrooms. Some of them had 9, some of them had 10. All of the court reporters that you saw were sent there by Caucasian-owned firms, and they had all of the courtrooms without a written contract. These were verbal contracts that these court reporting firms had entered into in the 70s and said, hey, if you won't compete with me in Virginia Beach, I won't come to Portsmouth. If you don't compete with me in Norfolk, I won't come to Chesapeake. And so the judges, I found out.
So they had a cartel. So the legal system had a cartel set up to keep out the others out, like yourself and other people who are coming back from duty and that type of thing. Wow, that's amazing, ironic, and unsurprising, all wrapped up in one. Maybe I don't know how to describe that.
And so here I am, fresh out of the Army. So mission accomplishment was all I knew. So no matter what they presented to me, you have this fresh soldier who's determined to accomplish this mission. So then I ended up getting into it with the judges. They were I started reaching out to Black attorneys, and they actually invited me to a bar association meeting. And they said, they had to admit, you're correct. We don't see any Black court reporters. And they would ask me things like, well, is it because you guys can't do it? I'm like, what do you mean? Yes, we can do it, but we're not given the opportunity because we don't look the way that they want us to look. So they started giving me business for their depositions, and they began, if they had a case that they were court appointed, they could bring their own court reporter. So they started bringing me, and then so I went back and I reached back and hired the girls who were in school, who went back to Taco Bell, who moved out of town. I went back and brought them back home and said, hey, no, we're going to do this. So I opened the first ever African-American owned court reporting in Hampton Roads, Virginia. But I paid a price. So once I did that, at that point, I had to find more resources for the girls to work. You know what I'm saying? We wanted a fair piece of the pie, and all I wanted was for them to compete it. So I met with one particular judge. He was the chief judge for the city of Norfolk, Virginia. And he met with me privately, and he told me this to my face. He said, Michelle, before we give you an opportunity to have a courtroom or bring your court reporters here in this courthouse, One of these firm owners will have to die, retire, or sell their business before we ever give you a chance. And I said, okay, all right. I fought the tears. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of the tears. And when I left out of there, I said, okay, God, he wants to play. So when I left out of there, I knew that he wanted to become a chief justice for the state of Virginia. So what I did was, me and my letter writing skills, I decided to write the state of Virginia Supreme Court. And I remember, Miss Court Reporter, I gave them a breakdown of the conversation I had with him. And then I provided them court orders that showed where my name had been placed in the order initially by Black attorneys. And then my name was removed and placed with white court reporting firms who had no contract. It was a verbal agreement. So I sent all that to the Supreme Court of Virginia. So all of a sudden I get a call. One of my attorney clients was Billy Robinson. He's passed away. He was a representative in the House of Representatives for the state of Virginia. He sponsored a piece of legislation to cause the court reporting to be bid for the first time. It passed in the House overwhelmingly. When it got to the Senate, it was defeated by 4 votes before it went to the governor. And I was told that it was because some of the judges made a couple of phone calls, right? So after this was defeated, I didn't know which way it was going to go. A few months later, after I had written that letter, I get notified that the city of Norfolk has decided to put their courtrooms up for bid. And Michelle, you're going to be given a chance to bid, you and your firm. And of course we did a phenomenal job on the bid, the proposal. We were the best price, lowest price. And they said, even though your price is lower, we're going to still go who we have because we don't have the confidence that you would be able to perform. So at the end of the day, I got my opportunity to bid, but they let me know we're still going to choose who we want to choose. So at that point in time, things on the federal side was opening up and I went in that direction. But they, to this day, remember Michelle Anthony, even though I'm in Atlanta, because I challenged something that was wrong. And what I've come to learn in my spiritual process, and I want to share this nugget for all of the listeners, go back in your life and examine anywhere there was a trauma, because what they did to me was traumatic. Okay. And when we go through traumas, we don't understand that sometimes it will stunt your growth. And so I went back and examined my life and I realized I began to believe some things about my financial ability and capabilities because of what other people had done wrong. And those beliefs were opposite of the truth that God has said that all things were possible to those who believe. I can do all things through Christ. But if I began to look at what my circumstances were and what they had done to prevent me from achieving wealth. So you got to look at it. Sometimes you don't understand why you get attacked at an early age in your life, right when you're ready to do something, and then you get the wind knocked out of you. You know what I'm saying? But when we go back in hindsight and you look at it, you have to find a way to forgive those people. Forgive those people so you're free. And then you can float, you can flow, you can examine, you can experience everything that God would have you to experience because you're free. And I didn't realize I had to go back and look, because really what they were doing, they were challenging my ability to earn and gain generational wealth. But if generational wealth has been spoken and we have the access to it, nothing can stop it. You see what I'm saying? Nothing can stop it. You have to believe. And in spite of whatever your obstacles are, don't stop. Don't accept it. Keep going. And as you keep believing, as you keep going, and have the audacity to believe bigger than you. I mean, here I am when I won the $25 billion contract. I had just come back. My father had just passed away from cancer, had been his caregiver, walked away from business. I wrote that proposal with a team of people from my sofa in my living room. The company had died down, but I knew I could do it. And I did it. I had the audacity to believe it. And when they named the awardees, I was in the number.
You know what? We're going to talk about that.
Just a second. I really want to hang on a second, because I got to call Tony Robbins and let him know that competition coming down the pipe.
No, exactly. And you know what? We're going to take a just quick break. And when we get back into it, the theme that keeps resonating with me, listening to you speak, is institutions overcoming institutional racism and leveraging these institutions for your benefit, right? And how do you leverage, or how do you hit institutions in the right way to make significant change, not just for you, but for the people that come after you as well? So I want to dig into that, in 1 second. But for the people who are just tuning in, y'all need to go back and just rewatch this video over and over again, because this is the candidate for the best video of the year, the best interview of the year that I've done. Walters is also another candidate, actually, that we did a few weeks back. And today we're talking with Michelle F. Anthony. Michelle is the president and CEO of Anthony and Associates, also known as AAI. And today we're talking about how she has won two contracts, one worth $25 billion with the federal government, the other worth $900 million with the federal government. And combined, she has won about $26 billion of federal government contracts. So if you guys like this video, please show us some love. On the count of three, actually, this video is so good that I'm going to just implore you guys right now to show us some love by pressing the thumbs up button on YouTube. So on the count of three, everybody press the thumbs up button. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and press the thumbs up button, share, subscribe, do all that you need to do, because this is an opportunity that you don't want to miss. Hearing Michelle's story and Walter closing us out at the end. These are opportunities and things you don't want to miss about what's going on in federal government contracting. And the story that Michelle just told us about, being, her fight with, Virginia and Norfolk and everything like that, that wasn't in the 70s and 80s, right? That was in the 90s. That was in 1994. Right. And, that's when most of us were born. Most of us were teenagers. I was a teenager at that time. And, we were just living, normal lives, and we were still going through those same types of things. Right. And to this next segment, I want to just talk with Michelle about leveraging institutions instead of just fighting. And you have to fight sometimes, but then she found a way to just, guide her way through and create generational wealth for herself and her family. And that's what I want to get into right now. So Michelle, let's talk about that part of your story, in terms of what was it like when you got your first government contract? What was your feeling? Like, how did you feel? And how did you go about doing it?
My first government contract, they started out small, because I started out just doing individual court reporting cases on an as-needed basis. And I didn't win my first sizable contract until maybe around, I think maybe 2009. And at that time, I had someone say something to me, and they kind of sparked something in me. And they were like, well, Michelle, if you're providing court reporters around the country and you're doing what you do for the federal government, they were like, well, I think you could probably do more for the federal government. And I was like, really? You think so? So here I go again. Let me put my thinking cap on. Well, what can I do? And I started thinking, okay, what can I do? Started looking at, hey, I still have this 8A. And I know that they'll give sole source contracts. And, what do I need to do to just start getting?
Let me stop you right there, actually. Mm-hmm. Can you explain what 8A certification is first, please?
Okay, yes. The 8A certification is a program that is managed by the Small Business Administration. And it is a program that the government has set up for the underserved to be able to access government contracts at certain levels, limited competition or no competition. Okay. And when you have an 8A participant, the company will be called an 8A company, but really it's based upon the financial status of the owner of the company. And so once you have been approved as an 8A verified business, you can only have this once. Okay. It's like the government saying, hey, we're going to give you one bite of this apple, and you have a 9-year program. And during the 9-year program, you have to, tell them how you plan to grow your company, what you want to do, and how you want to expand it. But they give you no ideas. They give you no training. They give you no marketing tips. They don't do any of that. You're supposed to tell them. And so once you do, then you take whatever you've outlined and you go and try and make it grow. You knock on doors. A lot of people think that when they get in the 8A program, the government's going to give you contracts. No, they're not. It's the exact opposite. You have to go and market yourself and win over customers. And a lot of times, I didn't understand chasing the wrong customer because I wasn't taught. I'm chasing contracting officers when you should be chasing the person who's in the agency who's purchasing what you need. Because if you build a relationship with them, they can recommend, okay, well, I've been working with this company and we want to use them again. And if there's a sole source opportunity under $4 million, bam, there you go. They'll get one or two of the bids just to do their technicality. But if the person who is over the program that you're providing a service for says, hey, they do good work, we want to use them, then that's how they'll get it to you. So, I mean, going from a small business, the sad reality is most women-owned businesses have never earned $1 million. Under 3% of women-owned businesses have ever earned $1 million. But in the federal government contracting arena, if they were an 8A company, even if they were to get something where they provided 4 to 10 personnel to the government over 4 or 5 years, you're talking at least a $3 to $4 million contract. So straight out the gate with the right training. Now they can't just, you have to have people who are knowledgeable. In the military, we used to always say, what's the smartest way to get through a minefield? Follow the person who's already gone through it.
Yeah.
Why would you try to go through the minefield without some knowledge and training from someone who's already done it? So those are the types of things that Walter has already navigated. I've already navigated. So when, so you need mentors, you need help, because that was the one thing I didn't have. I didn't have a mentor. If I had a mentor, I'd be close to a billionaire by now.
Save you a whole bunch more time. Yeah,
Yes.
and earn more money. And, I really want you to answer this question, though, in terms of the way that you felt with the first, multi-million-dollar contract that you received, right, from the federal government. Like, how did that make you feel when you won, you earned and won that contract versus, in terms of like, where was your business before, and then where was your business after you received that contract, and how did it make you feel?
Prior to that, I had only earned a few $100,000. And when I was awarded my first $1.8 million was how much the first contract was for. And it was actually for court reporting. And the feeling that I had was incredible, because what I realized that what I loved to do, that I would do in my sleep, it had great value. And when I was able to tap into that, I just realized there's nothing I cannot do now. You know what I'm saying? And it was a game changer for me, for my family. It was consistent income. It was consistent revenue. It put me on the map as far as credibility, competence, and it just opened the door to be able to say, as a performance, because the government looks at what they call past performance. Have you performed on this level of what you're applying or you're bidding for? And for me to be able to have now the ability to say, we provided court reporters around the world now. You know what I'm saying? It finally validated me. It finally helped to heal all of that I had gone through to make me feel like we couldn't. This showed me I could. That's what it did for me.
No, I love it. I love it. Everybody press the thumbs up button, y'all. Like, this is pure gold that you are witnessing right here with Michelle F. Anthony, president and CEO of Anthony and Associates. We're talking about today how this Black woman that's in front of you has won a total of $26 billion in government contracting. One worth $25 billion, another worth $900 million, and many, many more in between those two as well. Please go ahead and press the thumbs up button and show her some love. I want to talk about the jump to the bigger contracts real quick, and then I'll hand it over to Walter to ask any final questions and to close us out. talk about that process, right? Like at this point, it seems like you have completely immersed yourself into the I guess process of how to win these contracts, the law, what's necessary, finding the different angles, finding the different strategies to make sure that you get yourself in. But that's still a big jump from an 8A contract of $5 million or whatever the amount is to jump into 900 million and then eventually $25 billion. So talk about how your mind shift needed to change and what additional, I guess, skills or attributes that you needed to actually make that jump to these larger and larger contracts.
Well, for that, I'm going to have to talk about my relationship with Walter. When the 8A program, which was what I knew and what I had, was sunsetting, I began to search. And when I began to search, I had met Walter, but he and I had not begun to work together. But when I began to really search for how to look for another opportunity and maximize it, Walter appeared again in my life. And it was at a very, very strategic time when the law had just changed in the most significant way for service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. And Walter was beginning to have some classes and offered some mentoring for service-disabled owned businesses to learn how to navigate and take advantage of the new laws, because I knew the law had changed and I knew it was significant, but I didn't know how to maximize it. And that's when I teamed up with Walter. And that's when I began to understand the mindset that we as a people have been taught and instilled that we need to do it by ourselves, because that was working against me. I needed to stretch myself and partner and leverage what I had and pool my resources. But I also needed someone who had already blazed the trail, that had already accomplished what we refer to as joint venturing and the mentor protege program and size affiliation. See, I didn't know how to take it all and make it work. And so I began on a beach in Punta Cana. I reached out to Walter. And I was celebrating my birthday. And I said, you know what? I'm going to educate myself on this beach. And every day I sat there and I did that. And when I came back, he and I linked up. He began to teach me, train me. I signed up. We worked together. I worked with a group of people and like-minded individuals. And from that point forward, I think he noticed there was a different type of hunger with me, a different determination in me. And we just began to start putting this thing together. And I began to learn how to look for where I was weak. I look for strength in other partner companies and organizations. So when you hear me talk about these large contracts, those contracts, I still have to work with other companies in order to perform. Because if I don't, you can't position yourself to fail. And you can't have a mentality that is not enough to share. You see what I'm saying? There's so much to share. It's not just about me. It's about bringing others on board and along so that we can all become viable resources in this universe, in this earth, so that we can take our rightful place at the table. But if I'm the only one that looks like me sitting at the table, I'm still going to have problems. We need more and more so that we can have an impact on the decisions that are made and the way things are shaped and that they're done. So that's what I did. I worked with Walter. I began to study and research the laws and understand, hey, if you really understand how to navigate this, let me give you an example. When they asked the president of the United States, why did he not share his tax returns during the debates, I think it was in 2016, his answer was, or why did he not pay taxes? He said, because it was legal. See, the accountants and the people he had working with him understood how to look at those laws and take advantage of it. But we didn't. We traditionally have not studied enough to understand there is a benefit. It's hidden. You got to search. You got to work for it. But if you do, it will change your life. It will add, it will increase, it will multiply, and it will keep what you have rather than everything we have, we give it away. Everything we have, we waste. We've been conditioned to have a consumer mentality. on, like on today. Why are we consuming? We should be investing. We should be growing. We should be, learning and stretching ourselves. But this is the type of thing that we have to come against and help our people. If they ever want to get to where they say they want to get to, the change starts with you. And so I had to change. I had to do these very things that I'm sharing with them so that I could get to where I'm trying to go. You can't get it the way that we were conditioned, because we were conditioned in error on purpose. That was done on purpose.
Man, this is powerful. And I so many things in my brain keep connecting with each other. And, this is so powerful that I pushed our next interview back 15 minutes so we can wrap this thing up in the proper format. So stay with us for the next interview as well. We're talking with Mr. Herb Strather out of Detroit, Michigan about commercial real estate. You don't want to miss that as well. But I'm going to pass it over to Walter just to, close us out. Ask Michelle any final questions or things that I may have missed, and then just to close us out in terms of, his thoughts as well. But before I do that, I just had one last thought, and this has been coming up over and over and over again as I do my research. I'm doing a big research project on power in terms of what is power, how Black people can attain it, and how Black people can keep it. Right. And one of the books that I've been reading, amongst others, I have a reading list of about 80 to 100 books, something like that, that I'm going to get through over the next year and a half or so. But one of them is called Black Against Empire, and it's about the Black Panther Party, and and that's on the other side of the equation, right? We're talking about government contracting, but what they did in terms of challenge the authority. One thing that was crucial to them in the early stages, especially when they were policing the police, was having complete understanding of the law. They had complete understanding of the law. And when police try to abuse their powers, they can come back with statutes saying, hey, if you do that, do you really want to do that and go against the Supreme Court or go against the local federal judges or state judges and tell them why you broke the law. Right. And you saw Michelle do that at the very beginning when she was challenging the court reporters in Norfolk and in Virginia. Right. She was challenging them because she understood the law and she understood what these elected politicians actually wanted. Right. And then she used that to gain $26 billion worth of federal government contracts and create generational wealth for her family by understanding the law and knowing how to use the law and work the law to her advantage. You see the same with Byron Allen right now, how he's fighting Comcast, right? So I'm imploring you guys and even myself to really make sure that we understand the rules and regulations and how we can best leverage those rules and regulations for our generational impact, for our communities, for our children, and our children's children as well. But with that, Walter, we have, I guess, about 13 minutes or so. I'll let you just close us out with, however you want to end today's interview.
Well, and thank you, Lawrence. And this is a good segue point because you both touched on 2 points that are critical. One is the requirement, and Michelle will tell you, anyone who will listen, I tell them how important it is to study yourself approved, right? So that the information. I may have been blessed to stumble upon a system, but I still think it's important that you study yourself and know that system better than I do. But Michelle said something that was critical, and I think it kind of intersects what we're doing here as she talked about the president's position on his tax avoidance strategy, right? He knows the rules so that it's legal. In this particular arena, we have historically had this benefit of ours thrown around our neck as a weight or a tire that was designed to drown us. And the way they did it was they took our benefit and they redefined it as a pass-through, right? Something negative, right? You guys are doing a pass-through to those minority businesses. Well, much like the tax avoidance that is allowed by legislation that was put in place for a purpose, these small business set-asides, right? These small business contracting programs were designed to level an economic playing field to bring cure to that part of the society that has been injured like we have. And as a result of that, these programs that enable the small business set-asides, like the 8A program, like the woman-owned small business program, like the disabled veteran program, are allowed pass-throughs that have the specific purpose of creating an equitable playing field in federal contracting. The thing that is allowing Michelle to position herself for the meteoric generational wealth is that she studied herself, approved, and knows how to use the system. And the second thing that Michelle said, which was very important, is she became a part of a community. She became a part of a group. There's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a group. And with a young lady over here who's not dissimilar to many of the females that are watching this, and she's probably connected in some way to many of the men, right? A female like Michelle connected to many of the men that are, this is something that we have an opportunity to take full advantage of, and the laws operate within our favor. And as Michelle explained, she built out some partnerships that have allowed her to traverse in other areas. But I want to ask Michelle a question that may seem a little bit off the beaten trail. And as you see, Michelle, right now I'm repping Africa, right? I'm repping Open Africa because I see something happening over on the continent that in my lifetime hasn't happened before. And let me ask this question first. How familiar are you with the Africa Free Trade and the R400 initiative that's going on in Africa right now?
I'm familiar with it, Walter. I've actually began to unpack that because now my mind, in addition to what I've been able to do here, I was looking for another opportunity again to expand and to grow. And that is a perfect segue because, again, it's going to require us coming together, pooling our resources, because that's the whole basis that they've done this. They've come together for the first time to create the largest trade alliance in the world. So now, why would I not pay attention to that and look at how can I take the experience, the knowledge, the tools, and the relationships that I've built here and the strategies that we've deployed successfully and say, how can I leverage that against what Africa has open now? I mean, we're talking the whole continent of Africa is open for business. So when I began to study it, I started saying, okay, now I know what I traditionally do. But one thing that I've learned is in a situation like this, let me provide them something that they need. Not something I want to give, but something that they need. So then if that's the case, where do I start looking and leveraging the relationships and the partnerships here in the United States so that I can bring a viable solution to them on another country that we can do business at a much larger level? Because now you're not just dealing with a woman or a small business or what have you, but I've brought, an 800-pound gorilla partner with me that we have a trusted relationship now that they can bring maybe what I don't have, access to things I don't have. I bring them access to things they don't have. We put it together and it's a win-win-win for everybody. And that's the goal, is to create a win-win-win situation, improve the conditions in Africa, improve their relations with us as African Americans, and restore the relationship. So that's what I'm looking for between that on the business side, as well as my philanthropic side. This gives me an opportunity to work with the government at the highest levels to reach those who may never be able to start a business. But if I can go in and begin to teach them how to sustain themselves, if I can take a seed and instead of bringing them a meal, let me teach you how to grow and to build and to sustain yourself so you can become independent. You may not ever become as wealthy as everyone else, but you will be able to hold your head up. You'll be able to feed your family, because I didn't just come in and feed you. I came in and I gave you a seed. And the seed was not for you to consume. The seed was for you to plant and for you to produce much more fruit of its kind. That's how we can help and uplift the other sisters and brothers in Africa, as well as take advantage of the business opportunities and helping those companies grow and understand how we as Americans do business and do it very well. That's what
Michelle, there's a missing ingredient in this pot of greens here, and I can hear the listeners and viewers all over the country asking the question, how are you going to do that? Right? I mean, I hear what you're talking about, right? You've got these needs over on the continent, and they need everything, right? Because of this new merger, everything from infrastructure, construction, transportation, the whole nine yards. And you're operating in a court reporting area, at least as the layman listener is hearing. So how are you going to create capability and capacity in these other areas to even meaningfully connect with these African companies? How are you going to do that?
I've expanded it before because court reporting is one of the least things that I do now. Court reporting is not where the money is that I've been earning. So another way that I'm going to do this is strategic alliances. You have to dynamically engineer a solution based upon the problem or the need. So that means I have to come out of my comfort zone, and I don't have to know everything. I have to have a trusted relationship with my partner that brings to the table what we're looking to bring to the table. I can pull upon my logistics background. So because if we're talking about infrastructure, roads, railroad, you're looking at even the supplies, the petroleum, all of those things. You're in oil-rich countries. So what I'm planning to do is leverage relationships, leverage other organizations that already have what I do not have. So the court reporting, that just helps me with the law side. I think that was just a part of my life to enable me to understand how to better use laws. But that is the small picture compared to where my mind is. Those contracts are not for court reporting. And what I'm planning to do on Africa will not be for court reporting. It will be for the needs of the country.
Three quick questions for you as we get ready to wrap this thing up, because what I'm promoting to the audience is that joint venturing is a viable pathway for them to move through to acquire generational wealth, and that I'm providing a system that will get them there from here. Can you explain to them how that system had any contribution to your success? And we're in rapid fire now, so
no worries. The joint venture process was what I utilized and I leveraged in order to win the contracts that I have. Like I said, so joint ventures and the relationships are why I'm sitting on $26 billion worth of contracts today.
Okay, and then we are going to be sponsoring a lecture on the 5th of January that is going to allow,
December 5th. There we go. 5th,
that's going to allow the audience to take a good look at the system that we offer to people on the MPU network. Would you encourage people to take advantage of that class?
That class is what I took advantage of. And that class is what got me between my faith and my willingness to follow and be instructed. That's how I've produced the results. Because if I went from $8 and $9 million on the 8A side, and we came together after that, and then I received the training in this class, that's when everything went to the numbers that they are. It exploded exponentially because of what I learned, and what I've been able to learn and take and utilize moving forward has changed my life.
Okay, and since it's Black Friday, right, I've been contemplating something, right? And the something I've been contemplating is giving every participant from the Black Business School who participates in the lecture a 30% discount on all of the programs that they get from the joint venture training system. Is that a value? Is that a deal?
That's an incredible deal. That's an incredible deal, because what you're going to invest up front, I promise you, if you take what is provided and you're serious, your life will change. Your life will change. And that's why I'm sitting where I'm sitting. When my vision exploded, my capacity exploded, because I got away from just me and I began to partner and form these joint ventures. And the rest is history. And it's only the sky's the limit.
And I'm going to ask you to do one last thing before I throw it back over to Lawrence to close this out. Can you share with the audience how your spiritual motivation is informing this process?
Well, from a spiritual standpoint, I had to do a lot of internal examinations, and I've been able to see by my willingness to be humble, by my willingness to be trained, by my willingness to try new things, to step out on faith. God has done the miraculous in my life. I've gone the business. It went from during the time my father was ill and I was taking care of my dad, and then my sister was diagnosed with cancer right behind it. This business has catapulted because first off, I kept God first and I sought out wise counsel. If we don't understand that we don't know everything, and if we feel that there's a destiny inside of us, there's a purpose, and if you put that purpose first over yourself, there's nothing that God won't allow you to experience. So as long as we keep others and going back to be our sister or our brother's keeper, and realizing not one of us can consume it all. None of us can consume it all. There's more than enough. We can't even imagine all that's in the earth. So we want to share and help one another and pull one another up instead of looking down on each other, and understand that we've been put together here to build something. I think that it's the greatest thing that you could ever do is give of yourself to others, and you will never, ever be dissatisfied. You will always be fulfilled, because it's about more than just you. It is. And we are here. I'm here today because I want to help others. There's so many women that don't know their value, that God has taught me my value. And I'm going to share this with you as a nugget. Women, if you've ever questioned who you are, how important you are in the dynamic plan of God, when there was a problem in the earth where God had created a man and he said it's not good for man to be alone, he did not create as a solution a hammer, a nail. He didn't give him that. He gave him a woman. He gave him a woman. So we carry great strength. We carry great value. And our role is not to always try and come against the man, but it is to come together. We're to come together and we're to build together. And then everything that we do will bring glory to God, and everyone will be the better for it. And that's what I have to say for women. We can do it, and we can be beautiful. We can be feminine. We don't have to compete, because he made us equal. We're not less than, we're equal. And I close with that.
Wonderful. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your story. Very heartfelt, very inspiring, and it sparked a lot of ideas in me in terms of what we should do next as the Black Business School as well. I would like to say, for the people who are watching, before you get out of here, please, 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 please make sure you press the thumbs up button. Also, I was just as Walter was inspired about my MPU in regards to excuse me about that. Just as he was inspired, to maybe offer 30% discount for our class of December 5th. The normal price it's already low at $99, but since it's Black Friday, we want to get as many people on there as possible to get this wonderful information. I just created a discount code for Black Friday for this particular course for 30% off. So you will find that link in the description of this webinar. And also, I think I included it, or I will include it in the live chat as well, so you guys can take advantage of that. also. And the last thing before we get out of here, I just want to say is make sure you stay with us because we have one more interview that's supposed to be happening or will be happening in the next 5 minutes or so with Mr. Herb Strather. He is out of Detroit, Michigan. He is a commercial real estate extraordinaire. So if real estate's your thing too, right, or you want to just think about how to create generational wealth for your family through real estate, please make sure you stay tuned for that. We'll be talking about real estate investing on the commercial side and also real estate developing too. So please make sure you stay for that. So on behalf of Miss Michelle F. Anthony and Mr. Walter Cotton III, we thank you for tuning in today's, interview with Michelle in terms of how she gained $26 billion in government contracts. So you guys take care, be blessed, and thanks for tuning in. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.